Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. How are you all doing today? Kind of getting my stuff lined up here. Uh, Hopefully everybody is doing well. Hey there, Tom, Captain Bart, Candace. Yeah, we're supposed to get. They say we were supposed to get some more snow tomorrow, but I guess I didn't check it. I might as well check. No, it's just supposed to be down in the single digits tonight and windy. Hey there, investor. Hey, whatever, prepper. 1776, Sunset Heritage. How is everybody doing today? I'm actually expecting, hey, Gallo, Dana Green. I actually got picked up a little ammo today because it was actually a pretty decent price. I got it for like between $11 and $12 a box. I got some of that PPU out of Serbia. It looked pretty good. I don't remember ever getting that in 5.56 before, but I remember getting their 9, and it was pretty decent for me. But I'm thinking there's going to be a spike in prices after the first of the year for that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of back to every paycheck. I'm going to start buying a little bit again because I do shoot on a pretty regular basis. So I want to have enough here so I can continue my practice and all. Hey there, Wingert, Linda, Scout, Monkey Food Garden. How you doing? Gina, 70 or 7 degrees here in northern Illinois. I believe that it's probably 10 here, but we're close to the lake, so that always kind of messes with it. 7490 is my station for WBCQ. You should Google it and check it out for your area. They have 5 stations. I will definitely do that, Dog White. I appreciate it. Monkey Food Garden. I've used a lot of PPU. Always seem to be decent quality. What really sold me on these is they did a really good job of putting sealer on the primer. When you look at the primer and you see a little red ring around the primer, that's like a lacquer that they put on that to make that cartridge as waterproof as possible. It's kind of an extra step. You normally don't see that in the real cheap ammo brands, but when I noticed that, I said, you know what, that's not too bad a price. The ammo looks like pretty decent quality. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of it. Even if it's just range ammo, it's still good to have. Only 9 degrees tomorrow in Texas. Oh God, that's terribly cold for Texas. Yeah, and down south, our brothers and sisters down south, when they get hit with the snow and the cold, they just don't have the equipment and stuff to deal with it like we have up here. I'm sure there's not a lot of snow plows on the road commission there in the road commissions don't have snow plows and salt in Texas, I'm sure, like we have it up here. Hey there, Anna Star. How you doing? George's Garden. Yeah, that's going to be cold tomorrow. Northern Mine. How you doing? Anna Star. When I lived in Texas, they put chains on their tires. I believe it. I believe it. Hey, they're essential. Yeah, it's a lot of propane went out the door today on at the shop where I was working. In fact, the last thing that I did is I filled 300-pound cylinders for somebody. That's actually quite a bit of propane. That's about 63 gallons. 100-pounder holds about 21 gallons. So that was a fair amount of propane that we pumped in there. 77 in Louisiana today. That's awesome. There's a lot of people around here that wish it was like that. Lake effect snow coming in. Watertown, New York, 30 inches. Yeah, because we're on the east side of Michigan. We don't get as much lake effect as they do on the west side of Michigan. The snow belts are up by Munising, over to the western part of the UP, along the Keweenaw there, especially the western side of the Keweenaw, and then in the lower peninsula, pretty much everything from Traverse City northward and then inland about as far as Kalkaska. That is the big time snow belt in the lower peninsula. They always get hammered. That northwest wind off of Lake Michigan there, they just dump feet and feet of snow. We got friends that live up in that area, and yeah, they get absolutely pounded. Tom, Southern Thumb, 12 degrees, snowy Sunday morning. We had a dusting on everything too. Howdy, Patriot Preacher. I did get your email, Patriot Preacher, and I will check that out about the problems they had with the buddy heaters there during the donated ones during Hurricane Helene there. But yeah, I did that buddy heater video just because I want folks to know, if you just buy one buddy heater and you think that you got it, you're good to go. If there's some type of power outage or whatever to stay warm, they're very quirky, and the more you know about them, the more you can deal with that kind of stuff. But them buddy heaters are quirky devils, and like I said in that video, sometimes they'll run with a filter, sometimes they won't run with a filter. The fan is really nice to have. That circulates the heat, makes those buddy heaters efficient. I don't like using the 1 pound cylinders unless I absolutely have to, because those buddy heaters, especially if it's cold out and you want to stay a little bit warm and you crank up one of them buddy heaters with one of them little tanks of gas on there, that ain't gonna last very long. You got that thing cranked up on high and it's really, really cold outside and you're trying to do something to stay warm or whatever, that's going to be blown out of there in 2-3 hours, one of those tanks. And but they're so convenient. They're just the right size. They got a handle on them so you can take them different places. They even got little screw ports on the back of it so you can actually hang them up on a wall, which makes it really convenient for like a small room like this right here. If I would want to heat this room just by itself, have something like that in there. But yeah, that's those darn buddy heaters. They're a nice to have, but I wish that they made them a little bit better quality than what they do. Oh, Wingert, how you doing, Mr. Bumblehill? Sunset, how are you tonight? They are still dealing with it. They have had buddies fail. Yeah, like I said, those buddy heaters. If you want them and you want them to, for your preps and stuff, you really need to have a couple of them, and you should have some spare parts and stuff for them, because they can screw up and leave you stranded if you just don't know how to deal with all that BS. I actually wish they would make like an elite one. They would make one like that, but then higher quality. Even if it'd be $50 more, it'd almost be worth it because you had something more to depend on. But they're cheap. That's just the way they are. And I've never found a propane heater that wasn't like an actual like wall unit that's mounted in a house. It's more like an appliance that really is any good. Even the old Mr. Heater cookers, and I have a couple of them here, where they had the disc and they have the burner on there where it directs heat out, but then you can tip it up to cook on it too. And actually, I like them for cooking on, but for throwing heat, they've got some really, really quirky things with them. Dog bite. I use a Mr. Heater cabinet heater and it works good. That's good. That's working good for you. Like I said, I like them. I like them. Been contemplating getting a Jackery generator. Yeah, one of the stores around here has just a couple of them Jackeries on the shelf, and I've been looking at them. They're about $300, and I'm kind of like, am I going to get enough use out of them to justify $300 with the other generator and stuff that I got here? But if I could pick one up reasonable or maybe used or something, I'd maybe grab one just to see once how they work. But I don't want to pour just a ton of money into it, just because if it doesn't, or if it doesn't work for me, then I'm out. $300 can buy a lot of preps, buy a lot of groceries and that kind of stuff. Patrice, 1966. How you doing there in Northern Illinois? Dean Mullins, how are you? Prepper for the Ages, how are you doing? Yes, Pacific seismic activity. Well, that's because all the CMEs and all the sunspot activity that always fires up the seismic activity. That's one thing that I have never experienced is an earthquake living here, in the Midwest. That's something that you don't have too often. Although there has been like small ones, like in southern Michigan, every once in a while they'll get a really small earthquake and they'll say, oh, there was whatever, a 3.2 or whatever earthquake, like down in Monroe or on the Ohio Michigan border or something, but I've never felt anything. Patriot Preacher, propane doesn't actually freeze, but it condensates and could freeze the valve. Yeah, The valves on the propane tanks that are triangle shaped, that's the new ones now. They are the OPD valve, and what they are is they are to protect the tank so you can't overfill them, because if you overfill a propane tank, it can be dangerous. But sometimes that OPD valve in there that will stick, and what'll happen then is it either won't let gas out or it won't allow you to fill it. And actually, one of the cheap and easy things you can do for that is you can take your 20 pounder and you can turn it upside down and tap it on the ground a couple of times. That will sometimes release that valve if that valve gets stuck in it. And I have actually seen that a couple of times where we have done that, where we turned it upside down and then tapped it on the sidewalk or a little bit, just a little bit, not too hard, but just enough to see to kind of break that loose, and that actually does work. Uh, hey, mother refugee. We got the whole family over here tonight, so it's kind of nice. We had a nice meal, even though I worked today. But we had some potatoes out of the garden, and we had some stuff out of the smoker. It was a decent meal, and it's good to have the family here. I think I got a little drool on me from the granddaughter somewhere around here, but don't don't worry about that. It's all good. Oh, I did not know that. Dana Green, I believe you can charge your Jackery on a gas generator. I did not know that. Yeah, you can definitely overfill an OPD valve. And see, the thing of it is anymore is you got the OPD valves in the smaller tanks, and then the larger tanks, generally like the 100 pounders and like high-low tanks, that kind of stuff, they'll have a bleeder on there. So you can open up the kind of the overflow bleeder valve, and then when you're filling the tank, you fill it until propane comes out of that. Then you shut it down and you close everything back up. But that's another way to protect from overfilling a propane tank. It's turning into a Hank Hill type discussion here with all the propane and propane appliances. Um, Prepper Don, you can charge any solar battery charger with a gas or propane generator. Well, I learned something. I've seen 100-pound tanks kept outside have condensation and freeze in the valve. Yeah, and I see a lot of it where people don't put any cover over the valve and they get snow and stuff in there. So then that's another thing that's in this type of weather that's you really got to watch. So I take a little bit of extra time, make sure I clean all that stuff out so customers don't have a problem with that. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in having some propane for the generator, some extra propane for the burners, so I can run Coleman stoves, or I can run my bigger burners if I'd want to can something. So I could run either a pressure canner, or I could run my hot water bath canners to can stuff. And of course, for the heating aspect of it, I like to have propane here. And for me, I'm lucky now. I'm working for a place that actually has they actually have propane there, so then I get propane just a little bit above cost, which makes it really nice. It makes it nice inexpensive way for me to have backup heat here at the place. And it's one of my fringe benefits of my job there, but it's actually pretty nice to have that. So that's one of the cool things that the boss lets us have there. But it's nice to have some of the spare parts and stuff for like those buddy heaters, and have extra propane hoses here, and have the right hoses and the hookup. So if you want to run like a Coleman stove off of a 20 pounder, you can. Had one of my subscribers mention about those propane trees. And what a propane tree is it's a long tube that you'll screw onto a 20 pounder, and then it'll have a couple different ports on the side there where you can hook other propane appliances up. So you could have like a propane lantern at the top for like an area light, and then you can have another hose come off one of the other ports, and then have that hooked up to like a Coleman stove. So you can have that like beside your table outside, like if you're at camp or whatever. Gives you a little area light, then gives you a way that you can cook too, or you could put a propane heater or something on that. So it gives you a couple different options. Patriot Preacher. Yeah, funny. But you basically have my old job just in a different store. Say, I've always worked in a store, but this is the first time I've worked in a store basically in my hometown. I did work in some stores when I was like a teenager and stuff, but because I worked at the big box stores for all those years, it's kind of nice folding back into, my own hometown. And the actual work isn't much different than what I did at the other, my other jobs, but it's much more important for the functionality of our community. I like being part of the community more so, just in case some SHTF does happen. So I feel like this job here just gives me more resources for my own preparedness, and everything that I'm learning on top of what I already know is really kind of kicking up my own personal preparedness because because I am working in that hardware environment, and you just pick up so much. If you're really getting out there and kind of pressing the flesh, you are learning stuff from the customers, and you're passing on stuff that I learn something every day new pretty much now. And that's kind of that perpetual learning. I tell you, especially for fixing things and how to, rig things up to keep things working. If it's, if there's a problem with something, you got that ingenuity that you're constantly sort of skimming off the other people you're interacting with. It really does help. Uh, McGiver Plumber. Yeah. Plumbing, there's the rule of thumb goes, if you're doing a plumbing project, it's it's three trips to the hardware store. It's three trips to the hardware store before you have the right stuff enough to fix whatever plumbing problem you have. Hey, Harry Morgan, your back door, Southern Survival, how you doing? Try charging your solar generator with a gas generator before. That's always a good idea. Anything like that. If you buy anything for your preparedness, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but if you are happen to be listening to this live stream and you're buying stuff, whether it's a knife or a radio or a solar generator or a propane heater, whatever it might be, if you're buying that and you plan on using that for your preparedness, if something does go wrong, you need to fire that up, take it out of the package, try it out, make sure you're familiar with the features and the functions on it, how it works, if it's a good piece of equipment. If I've had stuff come right out of the package and break or not work, and that would be a heck of a note if something happens and you're like, oh, I got something for that, and you go open the package and you go to use it and it's defective out of the package, and then you're right back to square one. And you got to get out there and all the fancy names for it, the dirt time. You need to get out and try your stuff and make sure that it's working for you. It means so much. Yep, hardware stores and improvision go together. That's very true, Patriot Preacher. And but you got to be careful too. You don't want to get sucked into people's projects. You want to help them get the stuff that they need to go work, but it's very easy to get pulled in when you're working in a place like that. It's very easy to get sucked into the customer's projects, and you got to kind of draw the line there, because yeah, I could spend all day fixing other people's stuff, or I don't think my boss would appreciate that though, because then I would never get any work done for him. So Southern Survival, one thing I overlooked was a nebulizer. Portable nebulizers valuable for prepping because it provides reliable to go respiratory treatment due to emergencies. That's very true. And we actually do have a nebulizer here. I don't think I've ever showed it in any of my videos, but we have one of those albuterol nebulizers because we've had several members of the family have problems with asthma in the past and stuff. And we actually have some albuterol and stuff here, but that's all, prescription. So I didn't really talk about that much, but I do actually have a nebulizer here, and you'd be surprised, when somebody's got some severe, breathing problems going on, you'd be surprised on how much that really does help. It's good to have here. Tom bought several adapters for my propane heaters, stove, lanterns, also Coleman lanterns, cook stoves, alcohol heaters as well. Yeah, I'm fortunate enough. I got a kind of a mini lantern connection. I've got the ones that take the Coleman fuel plus like the dual fuel ones too. And then of course, if you got lanterns, you got to make sure you have some mantles and stuff around because those things um, go pretty quick. Couldn't work in a hardware store, Monkey Food Garden. I would spend my entire check there. And some of the people I work with, they worked at other hardware stores in the past, and they did exactly that. They would, get their paycheck, but they charged everything, and their paycheck was like $100 or something because they charged building material or whatever that they got. That's actually pretty close to 100% true. Georgia Garden, exactly what my husband says about other projects. Yeah, you get sucked into projects big time. Whatever, prepper. Do you think China can turn off your EcoFlow? I've often wondered that about the Baofeng radios and stuff. All that stuff is made in China. I was often wondered if there is like a back door to any of that electronic stuff that they could remotely mess around or, hack into that stuff if if they had a malicious intent. But that's one that I don't know. I had know enough about that electronic stuff to actually look into that. But you know what? I don't think that that's too far from. That's definitely a theory that I would look into if I knew, kind of where to go about doing a check to see if there's any add-ons that aren't supposed to be in like one of those Baofangs or anything. Amish neighbor calls my barn workshop the hardware store. I get a lot of Amish that come in. I'm Amish. There's Amish that do work, but then there's a lot of Amish, younger Amish that work with other people, especially in the summertime. You'll see a work crew come in, maybe 5 or 6 guys, and maybe two of them are Amish, and because there's work out there if people want to do it. Hey, Grit and Grace. Oh yeah, I would be the thing with our authorities here in our country. I'm just worried about their incompetence because it sure seems like anything that they do is, look at all the natural disasters in the last 20 years, how bad they bumbled all that stuff up. How hard is it to get some supplies and stuff into a place where there was a bad storm or whatever. I mean, heck, they did it around here in the 1940s when everything was snowed in after World War II. They brought plows and stuff in. Took them a couple of days, but they brought plows and stuff in from the Upper Peninsula to open the roads and stuff up. They got it done. You know, there was a problem. Everybody got together and they figured it out and they got it done in a pretty timely manner. And like nowadays, that's just right out the window. And then they wonder why. Well, why does somebody want to be a prepper? That's dumb. Yeah. Well, look at the incompetence in pretty much all of our systems. All our stuff is shipped in. We don't make anything here anymore, and it's just. I've always been, because I've worked at a store my entire life, I have always been concerned about the supply chain. If anybody worked at any large retail establishment for a couple of years, you can see where all the problems are. I'm like, how everything depends on trucks and computers and electricity and logistics and transportation, and not just transportation across the country, transportation across the oceans, and the problems with the ports. And i I'm really surprised there hasn't been something like 2020 when the whole supply chain locked up. I'm really surprised there hasn't been more issues like that, and I am surprised that something like that hasn't been even more serious than what it was in 2020. I am very concerned that, If there's some type of grid failure, that's going to cascade right into the supply chain. And pretty much what you got at your house is what you're going to have. Maybe a little bit of stuff can get in, like around here, we have local people that, grow stuff and sell it to the stores and whatnot during season and whatnot. But there might be a little bit of stuff here available locally for us because we're in an agricultural area. But in other areas, larger metropolitan areas and stuff, where they're bringing in, tons and tons of supplies daily to support these large metropolitan areas and stuff, it's just an accident waiting to happen. Very much so. Jody from Michigan, how you doing? Hudson Valley, how you doing tonight, buddy? I built my own lithium backup batteries. I just don't trust the electronic computerized ones. That's awesome, Vester. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, make sure if you guys have never been over there to Hudson Valley Prepping and Survivals channel, make sure you check him out. Give him some views. He's a good guy. He's constantly fighting with YouTube and the algorithm. He never seems to get a break from YouTube. They're constantly going after him because they don't like his opinion. And that is the biggest thing. I talked about this in my other live stream or one of my videos just recently here. um I would love to do a live talking about problems that I've seen with different firearms and whatnot over the years. And I actually sat down here and I've actually shot a couple of videos on, magazines and how to clean magazines out and different upgrades I've done to my firearms and why I did those upgrades and some problems that I seen that were really, really glaring problems when I sold firearms for over 20 years, and the stuff that we sent back, and certain companies that were just junk. The name would change a couple of times, but it was still all the same crap and it was all junk. Like I'll throw this one out here. Any firearm, when I sold stuff back 2020, I stopped selling firearms in 2020 basically. And but before that I had been doing it for 20 years. And anything made in Turkey was basically junk. And I know they got clones for different, stuff like the Benelli shotguns and stuff. They got clones that are coming in from Turkey and whatever. And there's a company in Turkey. It used to have the name of Charles Daly. Then it was like TriStar, and gosh, there was a couple other names that they went by, and that was all that same Turkish firearms manufacturing. And I had I'm going to say at least 50% of those that I sold, no matter what the particular model was, came back. So if you'd sell two of those Charles Dailies or TriStars or whatever, one of them would come back with some problem, would have to get shipped out. They were just built cheap and chintzy. So I would absolutely not trust any firearm that was made in Turkey. Another thing is Chinese made stuff that was built on old American patents that expired. Like the Browning, there was a Browning 22 that was a bottom eject, and that the patent ran out on it, so they had Chinese copies that came in there. And I remember seeing those when those guns came in. They were in a styrofoam tray, and then they were slid into a sleeve, and I slid it out, and there was like fine dirt inside that styrofoam package. And I called up the buyer or whatever and said, hey, why do all these 22s that are coming in here have all this like grayish dust that's in all of these packages? And he said, well, that's because those 22s are made in a factory with a dirt floor. And those two, like every other one that we sold, came back because it didn't work. And they basically more or less just gave people their money back, and they basically trashed those 22s at the time. It was crazy. LOL, they can kick rocks, modern refugee. I'll speak my mind. Oh, and you know what? You should be able to. I should be able to come on here. YouTube's making money off my channel. If I want to come in here in a live stream and I want to show you a part I put in an 8K to make that more reliable, in a tutorial type fashion, there shouldn't be any problem with that. That shouldn't get flagged for any, but that's not how it goes. I'll mention another thing here because I doubt I'll ever drop those videos where I talked about that stuff. But Mossbergs are extremely popular. I had a lot of problems with Mossbergs, me personally, plus stuff that came back in. The only good thing with Mossbergs were they had a really good warranty department. They would work with customers. But one of the things that I seen, actually, there were two things I seen on Mossberg 500 shotguns. The trigger housing was plastic, was some type of polymer. I've seen those break multiple times. And the other thing was the safety on the top of the receiver. Mossberg has a safety on the top of the receiver, which makes it great for ambidextrous. Left and right-handed people can pretty much work that the same way. I've seen those safety tabs, that safety switch on there, they break. They break right across where the screw, the hole where the screw holds that in place. And then, if I remember correctly, there's a little spring and there's a little ball bearing that sits underneath that puts tension on that to work that safety. And if that breaks out in the field, you lose those two small little parts, you're dead in the water. You don't have a safety on the gun. And I seen so many of those break. Now, if I was told that, I haven't seen a 590 in a long time, the more military grade 500 shotgun is a 590, and I heard that they actually have metal ones of those. So if I would have a Mossberg 500 today, no matter whether it's a 20 gauge, 12, whatever, I would replace that safety on the top with a metal safety. And like I said, stuff like that is the stuff I would love to do videos on, but it's just going to get beat down by YouTube anyway. And to me, that, because there's so many, how many YouTube videos have you seen where preppers were talking about guns and say, well, you need to go out and get a Mossberg 500 shotgun because they're like a couple $100 or whatever. But how many of them said, well, then the first thing you need to do is go replace that safety switch on the top there, because there's a good chance that one might break on you, that kind of stuff. So Sunset, just baked a pie. That sounds awesome. I could go for a piece of berry pie right now and a good scoop of ice cream. I need it like I need a hole in my head, though. Yeah, anything that I trusting my life to, Monkey Food Garden, is going to meet a certain quality standards, and that's why I become, I in my older age here, there's certain pieces of equipment that I choose because I want that. I want that extra quality. I want that extra hardiness, so to speak, because that is stuff that I plan on using if, SHTF does happen. Hey there, farmer. How you doing from the People's Republic of Michigan, just like me? Yeah, Mossberg's Maverick 88 has a cross bolt safety that is like the old Winchester 1300 style safeties, but that whole thing sits in a polymer trigger housing, trigger group. And that's the other thing that I seen break, especially there's like two tabs that fit into the aluminum receiver. They fit in, and then the trigger housing drops down, and then there's a pin that holds the back of that in place. Where like on a Remington, the Remington 870, that fits in, and there's two pins that hold it in place, where on the Mossberg, there's only the one pin in the back, and those tabs actually hold it. I've seen those polymer tabs bust off. So now the trigger housing is actually going to fall, down a little bit, and it doesn't make contact with the other internal parts that are in there, and it will cause the gun to malfunction. So, oh yeah, Patriot Preacher, I highly recommend any older Remingtons. I never seen a Remington bolt action, never seen a Remington 700 come back. Never seen a really major problem with any 870s. The thing with 870s that I have seen a few times, and that comes from just wear and tear and using it. The magazine, pump shotgun looks like two tubes. The barrel's one tube, and the magazine's the other tube that sits underneath it. That's where you load your shells into. Well, there's a follower in there, and they're plastic nowadays, and they wear. And if you're loading your shotgun out in field conditions where you're getting debris and stuff into that, which is highly likely, if you're like laying in duck blinds or whatever, I've seen those plastic followers break, jam up, whatever. So I've actually replaced them with metal ones. And then two, that tube that holds the ammunition, that needs to be cleaned from time to time too. So you need to actually take the spring and that follower out of there, and you need to kind of wipe that out and clean that out, because you will actually get debris and stuff in there if you're using that out in field conditions. And then of course you want to carry, whether you got an 870 or old 1100, 1187, whatever, you want to have a spare spring for that. So you want to replace that follower with a metal one, and you want to have a spring, an extra spring in that. Like handguns, when you start noticing the ejection pattern on your spent casing is like, whatever, you're shooting fine, it's throwing the casing, whatever, 3-4 feet out to the side, everything's going good, and all of a sudden you're shooting that handgun, and all of a sudden the shell casings are landing on your hat or the brim of your hat or something, where that ejection pattern has changed. You want to change the recoil spring in that handgun. And I guarantee you, if you change that with a new recoil spring in, you're going to reestablish your good ejection pattern, which is very important for a semi-automatic handgun. But anyway, that's something too that I wanted to, Georgia Garden, any issues with a Glock 19 other than spare parts? For a Glock 19, my Glock 19 that I got here, I got one spare part, and that's a recoil spring. And depending on what generation, mine's a Gen 4, so I got a captive recoil spring and guide rod, and I keep that. And that's like a $20 part. If you have one of those there, that's going to take care of a lot of problems. But that's what I would have for a Glock 19, or any Glock, really. If it's got a 17 or whatever, I would have a spare recoil spring for any semi-automatic handgun. If that's the one part that you have for your pistol, I would have a spring there. And like an AR, the only thing that I ever seen kind of mess up on ARs was charging handles. So I like a more robust charging handle on an AR. But other than that, I know that bolts and stuff cam pins and that stuff can break in ARs, but I've never actually had one of them break. But those are the parts that you would want to keep for that. And like on an AK, here's another one. I might tell you guys, might as well just go over some of this stuff. But AKs have what's called a shepherd's hook, and the shepherd's hook is a little spring that puts tension on the pins that hold your trigger parts in place, and that is a known weakness that can loosen up over time and cause those pins to walk in the AK receiver. So you can actually take that shepherd's hook spring out of there, and you replace that with what they call a retaining plate. And what that is that's just a little stamped piece of metal that holds that in, that can't loosen up like that spring can, and cause those trigger pin walks. So that's one of the quirky things with an AK. And then two, for my AK, which I don't use much anymore, but I plan on actually upgrading a couple of my guns with red dots over the next year or two, so I can actually compensate for my deteriorating vision, and the red dots seem to be the way. But then the other thing with an AK is I actually replaced the safety lever on an AK is very small, very fine, especially if you're wearing gloves. So you can get extended ones that have little like thumb tabs on them, or just larger piece. They have a larger tabs on them to actually operate them a little bit easier. So I actually switched that. But other than that, and then the pistol, I took the AK. An AK grip is pistol grip is really, really small. And even with my small hands, it was too small. So I actually upgraded that to a better grip. But other than that, that's the only thing that I've really done on my AK. And it operates really, really well for me, especially with the right magazines. You got to have, that's with any semi-automatic firearm, is the right magazines, and you got to have good factory magazines. And I, like in handguns, I only use factory stock magazines in handguns. AKs and ARs, you can get off aftermarket things for them that are pretty decent nowadays. But if you got a kind of an oddball firearm that takes the magazine, you want to try to get the actual manufacturer replacement for those. Essential Tim, I don't have a Glock. Glocks are like belly buttons. Pretty much everybody's got at least one. I had a guy tell me that years ago. Anyway, I'm going to bag out. Peace. Do you take care, Sunsets? Good to having you here. Great. What a great name for a hardware store. Grit and Grace, the farming florist it was. Happened 2 or 3 loads from getting done feeding the cows. We sell actually a lot of, the owner of our business there, our hardware store, he's got other businesses, cattle and feed stores and stuff. I've really learned a lot about livestock feed and stuff in the last year here too. And there's really a lot to know about animal husbandry and keeping animals on a farm. I wouldn't mind if I had a little more space here. I wouldn't mind trying raising like a hog or something to have it, and then this time of year butcher it, make some hams and stuff. But I just don't have enough space out there right now to do all that stuff. Hey, Modern, getting ready to skillet a porterhouse. Any suggestions? When you're I would put some butter in the skillet, a little bit of olive oil to keep the smoke point up on that so you don't burn your butter. And then as you're frying your porterhouse, tip your pan up and take a spoon and take a little bit of those drippings from your butter and stuff, and you want to ladle that over top of that steak so it absorbs a little bit of that butter into the meat. That is actually very good. That's how I like doing steaks in a frying pan if I'm not doing them out, on an open fire or on the grill or something. Oh, what do we got here? There's a store in Northern Adams, Massachusetts, Sanford, and Kid Friday is $1 a day. Lots of good deals there on old tools and antiques. I got to hit our thrift store up. Maybe I can do that one day next week. I haven't been to our local thrift stores here in probably a year. And it's always good to hit those places every once in a while because sometimes you can stumble across some. And I got a couple kitchen utensils that I broke, and I would just as soon rather get some used ones than some of the old ones. I would much rather find old stuff at a secondhand store than I would buy some new Chinese crap. I'm more of a Ruger girl, no disrespect. I thought about Glock, but they are not aesthetically pleasing. No, Glocks are very Glockish. Yeah, they're not really a fine looking firearm. They're pretty utilitarian. And Rugers, I got a 1022 and I've had multiple Rugers over the years, but I've got a 1022. I bought the 1022 stainless when they first came out in 1997. That had to been either the first or second run of them that they ever made, and I got that here and I got it all decked out. I got a folding stock and I got a red dot on it, but then I can switch it back and forth between the actual wood stock that's on it too. It all depends on kind of how I want to use it. But then I've got a Ruger GP100, and boy, that is probably one of the best revolvers I've ever shot. I've shot some really fine-tuned Smith and Wessons that were good, and I've shot a couple of Colts that were phenomenal. But I'm going to say that GP100 that I got is probably in the top 80% of the revolvers that I've ever shot. Yeah, Patriot Preacher, pink Glocks. They won't let them sell. They passed some law here in Michigan. You can't get colored guns anymore. I think you can only get black, green, tan, and gray or something. They passed it that you can't have like a pink or purple gun. And I thought to myself, that's about the most ridiculous law I've ever heard of. Oh yeah, purse carry. I know a lot of gals that purse carry. It's something that's good to practice too. My wife, she doesn't carry a purse, so she doesn't carry that way. She carries a couple other different ways, but yeah, the purse carry is so popular, and they actually make purses that are specifically for carry too, which is kind of nice. Hey, Coney, how you doing? I have a pink Bond Girl snub nose. That's cool. I've always wanted one of those hammerless Smith and Wessons, but I've never ran across a good enough deal on one. But I only have one. Most of my handguns are all at least medium size because that's just what I enjoy shooting. Glock had a G43X in Holstein cow. Glock even, yeah, that G43X. That's like the single stack one, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah, they just that um, Northern, they just passed that law like this summer or something. I heard that, and I don't know if that means they can't sell anything new or existing inventories if they were colored or whatever. But yeah, there was something cooking for that. Well, they just had a big thing here in Michigan too, where our governor did some had a bunch of think tanks go together and come up with a reason how to screw us out of our firearms. The ban this and ban that, and make this illegal and that illegal and whatever. I just if they think that they're going to go around and collect everything that's out there, yeah, that's not going to happen. There's a lot of firearms in this state, and they're not going to go around and collect all that. That would be 10 times worse yet than what prohibition was in the 1930s. They would have, yeah, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Uh, yeah, Michigan stand. Yeah, see where we live here. This is we go against the grain of the bigger cities down in the southern part of the Lower Peninsula. So we're kind of an island here where we're at in our particular area compared to some of the other places. Yeah, belly band holsters are actually pretty good. I have a belly band holster, and that's actually a really good thing to have for the summertime because you can wear, you just wear a shirt that's a couple sizes too bigger. I always wear baggy clothes anywhere for that particular reason. But yeah, you can throw a little flashlight, a little like a pocket Glock or something like that. It will fit into a belly band actually really, really easy. CV, when the government fears the people, there's liberty. Yeah. They just, what possible good could it be making a whole bunch of folks like me making us criminals because we have a firearm? Does that make any sense? You're going to take a whole large section of the population and you're going to make them a criminal overnight by passing some law that never broke any laws in their life. And you're going to outlaw all the equipment that they have. And then somehow that's going to make the world a better place. I don't see it. Not even a little bit. I have a Ruger 2245 bull barrel and its attack driver. For those that don't know, a Ruger 2245 is a Ruger 22 pistol that has the same grip geometry and stuff as a 1911. So that's hence the name 2245. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Vester. I think that if I remember correctly, that is the deal with that. What that one is. I still stand by my beloved Ruger with a red spot on it. Oh yeah. And I would like to put a red dot on one of my pistols too, but I really don't have any of them that have the cuts and have the proper grooves and stuff in them to make them work. I have one here that is drilled out from the factory on that, but I'm not sure if that handgun would be good to have a red dot on. So, but then I would have to go buy another one that's got the whatever the MOS cut or whatever on it, and then I'm buying another handgun that I really don't need. So it's kind of, but it would be neat to kind of have one of those kind of stay at least a little bit up with technology on that stuff. Oh yeah, dog, but ice fishing. Yeah, we were selling ice fishing stuff today. We're still waiting to get in our wax worms. We haven't gotten any wax worms in yet. People have been asking for them, but we actually sold um, some ice fishing tackle and stuff today too. Yeah, the drone swarm ammo. Yeah, I seen somebody talking about that. I don't remember which YouTuber was talking about it, but yeah, I seen some of that. Isn't it funny how the old the old wing shooting shotguns are going to come back now to protect against the change in new technology. So I guess shooting all that skeet and trap when I was younger, that might come in handy, to pop drones out of the sky if you gotta start doing that. But then that's good. I was always one too. You always want to keep a few shotgun shells around because the shotgun is just so darn versatile. You know, anything else you switch firearms, you switch a different gun. I always said guns are like golf clubs. There's a different one for every shot. But where a shotgun kind of shines is you don't change the gun, you change the ammunition in the gun. And, you go from whatever. If you want to shoot turkeys, you use one type of ammunition. You want to shoot deer, you use another type of ammunition, and that's what keeps everything going. But yeah, I think drones and shotguns are going to be the kind of the next big thing. They're going to have basically anti drone shot. You instead of having a grenadier in the military squads, now they're going to have anti drone shotgunners. Designed carrying purpose designed shotguns to take drones down. Ah, yeah, modern refugee. That is correct. Yeah, that's what I thought that grid. If I remember correctly, I think if I remember correctly, a guy that I used to work with, he had one of them. I think I maybe even shot one of them in the past, but I don't remember exactly now. Yeah, shotgun is a whole lot of stop that. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, somebody that's a proficient shot with a shotgun is a force to be reckoned with. Really is. They make slides already cut. Yeah, and then that Ruger, that what is it? Ruger RXM, the Ruger Magpul conversion or compilation there. They're did like a Gen 3 Glock because the patent expired and it's already got the cut in. That's probably what I would get because then I could use, my Glock magazines and stuff in here. I could still use that in that because I was um, they take Glock magazines, so then they're already drilled into. And I mean, I looked into having a couple of my handguns here actually cut, so they would take an RMR. And you're looking at a couple of $100. Well, if you can buy a whole nother gun for 400, you're maybe better off doing that because then you're not, kind of voiding all your warranty and everything by cutting up, an existing firearm. So oh, Mother Refugee is holding the grandbaby. Yeah, Mother Refugee has an XD9 subcompact, and it holds about 13 rounds, is what it holds, and it's very, very comfortable to shoot. That XD subcompact is probably one of the more comfortable 9mm subcompacts that I've ever shot. I've got a Glock 27, and that's okay, but that XD9 actually shoots better in it, and that Glock 27 that I have. That's the only pocket gun that I have, and she's got hers, but that Glock 27, I generally don't carry that much anymore. I did carry it for a while, but I would just as soon carry a Glock 19 or Glock 19X or something, something Glock 19 size, basically. But yeah, there's, gosh, what other like Marlin 60s. Of course, Marlin isn't Marlin anymore. Those Marlin 6022s, a lot of them came back until they redesigned the bolt. And if you look at the older Marlin 6022s that have the magazine underneath you load the 22 shells underneath the barrel. There's a tube under the barrel. That's your magazine. But they had like a curved handle on the bolt to rack the first round in. But they actually changed that to look more like almost like a little bolt that went in there that was knurled. When they changed that, they kind of redesigned the bolt, and then after that, there was a lot less of those marlins that came back in that needed repair. And another thing that I seen quite a bit, people would bring in guns with burst shotguns with burst barrels, and the reason why the barrels were burst, um, oh excuse me, they didn't have their choke tube screwed in all the way. So they had it, the choke tube was backed out a turn or two. Then you had that little bit of threaded portion inside the barrel. And when the shot came down the barrel, it would catch on that and it would blow that choke tube out the end of the gun, split the barrel. Seen that multiple different times on different brands of shotguns. And a couple of the companies, they did warranty that, but they told the customer then, yeah, that the reason that did that is because you didn't have your choke tube seated. So that was something that I seen quite a bit as well. And again, anything that's brand new, any brand new firearm that comes out, everybody wants to get the best new stuff that's out there, right? But a lot of times, if it's a brand new design, they're still working the bugs out. So you really want to stay with older, more proven platforms if you're going to go purchase something, especially for the first time, because they're going to have the older platforms have had a chance to get all them bugs worked out. So you're buying a better finished product, in my opinion, than anything that's brand new that just came out. And that's just kind of my opinion on that. Oh yeah, G22. That's a larger magazine for the Glock 27. I actually have the finger tab magazines. Is it Pierce or Pearson? They make a extra finger tab that you replace the base plate on the small Glock um, handgun magazines. It gives you a little place for your pinky to go. Gives you a little bit more control when you're shooting it too. So that's actually really good. And I actually don't have Glock 22 magazines for my 27. Actually have Glock 23 magazines, and I have several of those here, and they fit in. They're the one that's between the 22 and the 27. But oh gosh, what other things have I seen? I seen a lot of extractors come out of 1022s. Um, an extractor is sort of if you got a gun that you're doing a lot of shooting with, an extractor is always a good part to keep on hand, because those extractors, they can get rounded, they can get burrs on them, and where they're not hooking in and they're not pulling the shell out as good as it used to. It's not a very positive. So an extractor is something too that's kind of an important replacement part, so to speak, to keep around. But yeah, with handguns, doesn't matter what handgun it is if you have factory magazines and you have a spare recoil spring, you're doing pretty good. In shotguns, it's good to have, if you have a pump or a semi-automatic shotgun, to have another recoil or a magazine spring, because that magazine spring, if that's not strong enough, that's not going to feed the shot shell up into the action when it needs. It's not going to feed it fast enough. A lot of it with firearms, that's all timing. Everything has to be timed just right. You have to have enough. You have to have enough dwell time. So the next bullet has enough time to feed up and be ready and presented, so it can be chambered. That's sort of the quirk on that. Oh, what do I got going on here? Baby pictures. Oh, having a grandchild is a tremendous blessing. I absolutely love it. Dog bite. Mother turned 86 today. Well, happy birthday, Mom. 86. That's a ripe old age. I'll probably never make it that long because I'm too high strung. But yeah, 86. Well, my grandmother, she passed away when she was 96. So yeah, them old timers. I love talking with them. It's so much wisdom, so much wisdom. Oh yeah, essential. It's good to have like non-lethal stuff with you, like mace, that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with having a couple of different options with that kind of stuff. Um, I know a couple of different gals that carry both the pepper spray, and they have a license for a CPL here in Michigan, so they can kind of carry both around. Even when you're going hiking and stuff, I've seen some kind of funky stuff out just going hiking, on decent trails and stuff. I've seen some oddball stuff. You're 5, 6, 8 miles back in, and you have to kind of take care of yourself. There's nobody that's going to come, and or if they do finally come to help you out, that might take a couple hours for them to get there. So when you travel off the beaten path, you got to be prepared to take care of yourself for a lot of different things. That's why it's always good to have some kind of medical stuff with you. Carry your sidearm when you're going out in the woods hiking or whatever, and have enough stuff with you. So if something happens where you might have to spend the night out in the woods in whatever season you're in, it's good to have, those items and stuff with you, and always tell somebody where you're going, when you're going to be back. So if there is a problem, hey, we're missing some hikers here. They said they were going to be here at a particular time, and I haven't heard anything from them. Then they're late by several hours. That's a good chance something went wrong, and people need to know that so they can call the authorities and have them come and check on you. Mother passed away at 104. That's awesome, Lady Luger. My grandmother's sister, she was over 100, but my grandmother, she never quite made it. She had a bad heart valve, and they discovered that when she was like 90 years old, and they said there's no the complications to replace that heart valve would kill her. So they said it's not worth us doing anything, and she still lived another 6 years afterward yet. So that was always a something I always thought that maybe if grandma had that heart valve replaced when she was like 60 or something, she maybe would have made it to 100. But still 96 is a heck of a run. It's a heck of a run. Oh yeah, I don't want my reaction options to be all or nothing. Plus, I love my knives too. I try to use all my knives, but I got enough knives for a couple of lifetimes. But I try to get out and use all of them to some point or another. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm almost a collector more than I am a end user anymore. Well, guys, it's been about an hour. I enjoyed having this conversation with you as always. It's always great talking with you guys, and I always appreciate everybody coming, sitting down here with me for an hour and having a discussion with whatever is basically coming up. There's always something that I learned from these videos from you guys, these live streams, just like charging the solar chargers with a regular generator. That's something I didn't know when I started this, and now I know because of you guys. So I really appreciate you guys always sharing what you know with me, and it's a really great community that I have here, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. You guys take care and be safe out there.